Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Steve. Welcome, Deborah. This is another section of the Unfiltered interview where we want to get to know a bit closer some of the celebrities of III and celebrities from the insolvency bubble. And so we're very pleased that we have you as our guest today, Deborah. And don't worry, we won't ask you for any embarrassing stories. But the goal of this interview is to get to know you a little bit as a person and not so much about your high-end insolvency and law cases and everything. So, Steve, I remember you told me that I should start with the first question, but I would rather start with a little story to introduce the first question. I have three kids, and my youngest daughter, as a surprise to everybody, just started studying laws. And when I asked her, well, how come you study laws? She had a very good and, for me, embarrassing answer. She said, look, when you spend more time with your job than with your family, it must be pretty awesome. And so
Wow.
that's that's the introduction to my question to you. What made you decide to study laws and to, I don't know, discover the insolvency and restructuring bubble?
Well, it's interesting. Nothing as thoughtful as that from your daughter, because I got out of here, we call it high school, and started university and wanted to be a doctor actually. And after my first year at university, and I think it might have been a chemistry class, I decided maybe not so much for me. And I moved into the business school. I got a degree in finance and I was about to graduate. I didn't know what I was going to do. I mean, it's so different now. You know, kids now need to know what they're going to do by grade 10 so they can apply to a very specific program. But then back then it wasn't. You could kind of change your mind and you didn't really have to have an idea before you started school. So I was studying finance and I was starting to interview for jobs that I would get with a finance degree, and nothing was all that exciting. So I decided to go to law school. And I went to law school and about 2.5 years into it, just before graduation, I would always study at night in the med school library because it was open 24 hours and I worked my way through law school. So I was working while I was in school, which was somewhat unusual, but it meant I was studying late at night and not getting a lot of sleep. And so I spent a lot of time around med students. And just before graduation, I thought, oh, you know what? Maybe I really do want to be a doctor again. Maybe I'll start over. But I didn't. And here I am. And I got into insolvency really also by accident because I clerked my first year at a firm called Strick and Levan, a New York was a New York based firm. It's not around anymore. And when I clerked, I was told you'll get moved around to a bunch of different departments and get to try a lot of different things. And but I didn't. I got kind of put in the insolvency section and stayed there because it was super, super busy. And I just really liked it. So I kept clerking and doing bankruptcy work, and I took an advanced bankruptcy course, and I just ended up doing that. I started to think about going back to school and going to med school, but then the idea of, another 6 or 7 years of school after 7 years already was a little bit overwhelming, and I had a lot of student loans. Um, and then I was just super lucky. I landed in a great place with a great mentor and, was off to the races.
So did you have any role models in your family to
No, no
decide the
lawyers.
law?
Well, actually, that's not true.
Just out of curiosity.
I have an uncle who's a lawyer.
Yeah.
And so maybe, but yeah, you know what? Yeah, I don't think that was it. I think it was almost a process of elimination, right? As opposed to this is what I
Okay.
absolutely want to do. It was much easier for me to know what I didn't want to do than to know what
Mm.
I wanted to do. And it was and then it flipped a little bit when I started to specialize because well, again, I knew what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to be doing the same thing over and over and over again, which I felt like some transactional areas of law could be like, where it's just,
Yeah.
so what I liked
Yeah.
about insolvency is it pulls on so many different areas of the law,
Yeah.
right? And so many different skills. You have to be able to litigate, you have to be able to negotiate, you have to, understand strategy. you have to understand a business, its industry. I mean, I've learned about crazy industries, everything from, heavyweight boxing to how to make rubber foam manufacturing. I mean, the gambit, so it's always different and it's interesting.
Yeah, that is the same for me, I must admit. What makes it so interesting, the combination of being a lawyer and an entrepreneur, more or less, and to get the view behind the curtains with so many different businesses and industries and everything, and it's always exciting, always new and always
And you
exciting.
never stop learning.
And a
That's
little bit
right.
of a therapist and a counselor,
Yeah.
all of those things. But yeah, so my path wasn't straight, like perhaps your daughter who knows this is what she wants to do and she'll put her head down and do it. It had a few little digs along the way. I think in the end, the finance degree actually has really helped me as in the insolvency side because I can actually read a spreadsheet and I can read it, financial reports and understand them. And sometimes that surprises people on the other side. They're like, wait, you understand that? Actually, I do.
So along the same vein, obviously, I have the pleasure and benefit of being able to work alongside you as your partner at Pachulski. So I obviously know part of your practice as a Chapter 11 lawyer and doing committee work, but you're also really well known and part of the reason why we're here in the international insolvency and the cross borders. Like what drew you to that and the kind of doing the international and cross border? Was there any kind of spark there?
Yeah, well, I think it comes from the same thing, right? I can get bored easily, and so seeing different things and understanding different things has always been appealing to me. So there was a point in my career where I was doing a lot of debtor cases and a lot of cases, Silicon Valley based companies that had global footprints. So I started to get exposed to the cross-border work. And it was just something different than what I had been doing. And it was interesting. And I've always loved to travel. I've traveled all over the world and that's kind of one of my real passions is travel. And meeting different people and learning different perspectives. So I just kind of, I grabbed it as, okay, I've done, kind of the same thing in a lot of my cases for a long time. And now this is a way to expand. And so I just kind of fell into it and I love it actually. So it really keeps you thinking all the time about what could potentially, be out there and how could things be different because we could have such a focused view here in the US of the way we do things.
It is very good for
Big
the mental
world.
health to get different views all the time and to rethink your own. Yeah.
Right.
So you
It
mentioned one of your
keeps your mind active too, to always
Yeah.
be challenged by, what's happening and changing and developing. So I just really enjoyed learning more, right? After I don't feel like I've learned everything about the US practice of bankruptcy, but there's just more to learn in the bigger world.
well, you mentioned one of your passions being travel. Obviously, we talked a little bit about you as a professional, but what outside of travel and outside of work, what are your other passions? What else do you like to do in your free
Well,
time?
you may know this, Steve. I'm a farmer.
Really?
So I live in the Napa Valley on 13 acres. And in the summertime, pretty much everything we eat, not the protein because I don't grow animals, that's plants, but well, maybe you count my bees, but we don't eat the bees. We get a little bit of honey, but all of the fruits and vegetables, everything comes from my garden. And I make olive oil and I make vinegar and I have bees with honey and I love gardening. I love, if you look behind you, I don't know if you could see, but the books behind me, don't laugh about the color coding, but they're all landscape and garden and cut flower books. Every single one of them. Vegetable books, that's what's there, because that's really one of my big passions. I love to be outside. That's what I like to do here. But I love to travel. I love to hike. I love to trek. And I love, just to see other places and cultures. But yeah, I like to get my hands dirty. And when I'm down in the garden, I just kind of, or working on my farm, I just kind of shut everything out and I'm just, there.
That's quite amazing. Farm in Napa Valley. Does that mean you have your own vineyard or?
We don't have a vineyard. We live right next to a vineyard, so I can look out at other people's
Okay.
vineyards, but I have an orchard and I grow all kinds of heirloom fruits and vegetables. So I grow
Amazing.
peaches and plums and nectarines and pluots and apricots and all kinds of pears and apples and raspberries and blueberries and strawberries. And I have 12 kinds of pomegranates and I have 16 kinds of figs. So all
I
very
didn't even know there were 16 kinds of figs.
there are 65 kinds of pomegranates, maybe more.
See, folks, you learn things on here. I thought there was one, and it's the one that's like that you get from the grocery store.
No, no, no. There's all different kinds. So I have all kinds of heirloom, fruits and vegetables, and I just love it. And there's a whole community, and I grow lots of flowers and everything else. So I try to like everything that I grow, I try to either use for eating or use for flowers or decorating or things like that. So
You
that's
must have a very effective time management because I know that's a lot of work. We have only a small garden, and even that is too much for me. So how you manage to keep that
it's
all going parallel?
well, it's a lot of work. It, but it's at certain times. Like there are some really
Yeah.
intense times, and like when I'm harvesting, because last year I think I harvested, I don't know, one day
It's not only the
a
harvesting,
thousand
it's
pounds of
to do
peaches or
something with the
something.
fruit. That's
A lot of fruit. I mean, I have help that comes helps me on those really heavy moments, but it's a lot of time, but it's not because it's the time that is my kind of it's almost like a meditation in the garden when I'm working in the
yeah,
farm, when I'm in there digging and planting and everything else. And so it really isn't taking away from my time because it's kind of giving me back this
yeah.
relaxation time. But I in fact like if I don't get to go spend some time down in the farm or in the garden, like on the land in a normal week, it's almost like I feel like I'm not completely relaxed. Like it really
Okay.
is a grounding. Literally, the earth is very, very grounding for me. So, and of course, my name, Grassgreen, everyone thinks I go to the farm supply store and the and the nursery, and they're like, "You have the best name for gardening." And I'm like, "It really is my name."
I have known about your farming and gardening for years, and I have never put that together. So
Yeah.
so I don't know what that says about me, Deb.
Well, and actually, my initials are
Yeah,
DIG.
I which I also knew and I never put together.
So my
Wow.
husband built me a greenhouse one year for Christmas, and we have a little sign on it. It says DIG, and it's yeah, it has dual meanings. So so
So
yeah.
when you look back at your career and your life and family, did your goals or your priorities change when you have the gardening and the job and the family and traveling and
Well,
whatever?
you know, it's about balance. I think early in my career, balance was hard,
Yeah.
right? Like for a lot of young lawyers, but pretty quickly we have kind of an amazing sabbatical program at our firm, and
Mm.
I took 3 months off one time and traveled around. I took 6 months off another time. And as soon as you do that and you get these other perspectives and you have these breaks in your career, you realize that you can actually be away and your career's not going to be over,
Mhm.
and then you start to realize balance. So I think one of the things that I'm pretty good about is having boundaries and having balance. And the only way that you can do that is to also delegate and feel
Yeah.
confident in the people that you work with, like Steve, right?
Yeah.
And as I've gotten older, and I have a really big birthday this year, so older is a big issue for me right now. But as I've gotten older, I'm just better at that. And I have friends that are my contemporaries that just cannot delegate enough to find
Yeah.
that balance even now in their careers 35 years later. They just cannot figure out how to make a plan to go on a trip and actually let someone else deal with whatever else has to happen. But I think I've managed to do that, and I feel really proud about that actually, because I do, and I do take take time. Now I had my son later in life. I was older, so that was easier too. I think it'd be harder. It must be harder for younger mothers who are also trying to,
Yeah.
make their career, right? By the time I had my son, I had already, been much further along in my career, so it made it much easier.
So would that maybe be your recommendation to younger lawyers or younger professionals to find the balance?
Yeah,
Because I
I
think
don't
that
think I
would
would
be really
recommend
good
wait so
going.
long to have kids. That's not my
Yeah,
recommendation.
that's not possible with small
But
kids.
but but I think that the newer generation, I think they're already there. You know what I mean? They know how to say no. They don't feel the same pressure that we did when we were younger. And so I think they already know how to have boundaries in a way. It's just different, right? I remember this very distinctively. When I was a young lawyer working in LA, one of the partners had just had a baby and she was going to like a mommy and me class. And I remember her telling the other people in the office she was at a meeting, right? It wasn't okay to say, I'm
Mm.
taking my 2-year-old to the mommy and me class, right? But it is okay now to do that. And that is an amazing change, at least here in the US, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just the women that say it, it's the men that say it. I can't do it. I'm picking my kid up at baseball. You're not pretending you're doing something else. I think there's been a fundamental shift in kind of people being open to talking about their personal lives and prioritizing their
Mm.
personal lives. I think COVID actually helped with that because I think it gave people a window into people as a human being, right? Like people can look at me and see this is my home office and here I am and I'm neurotic, everything's in order.
Yeah.
And you can look out the window and see things. It gave people a window and it made people and when you see that people are more personal, I can be on the phone with a client and the client can say, sorry, you hear my kids in the background, and that's fine. But 30 years ago, it wasn't really fine, but it is now. It's
Mm.
now fine for women and men. So I actually think, while, you know, for me, I had to have this shift. It took a while for me to figure out how to like really get that balance. And some of it came again just with seniority and with confidence in the people around you. And Steve and I are just super lucky because we have that at our firm. There's really You'd be hard pressed to find an issue that there isn't somebody else who can deal with it. And you have to get comfortable enough with yourself to let someone else deal with it and to be comfortable to say, I know the client is still going to want me after I, have Steve handle this, not to feel like, oh, it has to be me all the time.
Mm.
That's hard for people. Some people can
Yeah.
do it. Some people just cannot do it, but I can because I love being in my garden. I love traveling. I love exercising. I love, doing whatever I'm doing. And I also love my work. And so, you know,
Yeah.
I think
You
I've
gotta
been
find a
super
way to,
lucky.
to juggle all that around. And then you obviously
Yeah.
will be quite successful in it.
I mean, there's hard times, right? When you're working late, I mean, there's still days where I'm up, as Steve knows, at 4 in the morning because he'll get an email from me at 7 for him. And he's like, what are you doing
What are you
emailing
doing
me?
awake, Deb? Yeah.
There are still days like that, but they're fewer, and they don't really bother me because I know if I'm working like crazy for, a certain period of time, then I know I can balance it by doing something else. So, you know, this morning before I got on with you guys, I was outside with my landscape folks because I'm planting a new garden. So I had to tell them
Even
I gotta
more.
go upstairs and get ready for court because I had a hearing before this. I'm like, I gotta go. I gotta get out of my gardening hat and clothes and get upstairs. And it's a work day, but I did that this morning for a few hours. It was fun.
Well, there are two questions we always ask all of our
Mm.
interviewees, and I want to ask one of them, and then Robert will ask the other one. And I'm going to give credit where credit is due. Robert, you're the one who came up with this question. I think it's a great one, which is there a book that not insolvency, I mean any book, something that you loved and you would recommend to other people, hey, you should really check this one out.
Oh,
Something that speaks to you.
that's hard because I'm a pretty avid reader. I every year I get like a stack of books at the holidays.
Gardening
My
books,
husband and
probably.
son, like they basically buy me the whole book or short list. Um, I think it's so personal, in terms of reading. Like, it just depends on the kinds of books. I'm kind of a romantic, so I mean,
That's what we want to have, your
my
personal book.
favorite, yeah, my favorite author is Gabriel Garcia Marquez. And,
Okay.
I could read his books over and over and over again. I wish I could read them in Spanish, but I can't.
Mhm.
But it just depends on the kind of books that you like. I also like historical dramas,
Mhm.
stories, set in some true historical context. But yeah, I mean, I can think of one that I would necessarily recommend because I think books are super personal, you know.
We will accept Gabriel Garcia Marquez, wonderful author, and and
We
and
can do
and yeah, no, we will accept that as a great answer.
Or if you want to learn how to grow flowers,
that.
or I have my jeans on so you can see I'm casual in the office, or
So do we.
it
So
was in
it's no
my
problem.
creating your backyard farm and the beekeeper's
Beekeeper.
Bible.
Yeah, I was expecting something like that after you told us.
That's
Okay,
Uh,
now that
weird.
the second question is you can make somebody happy now by recommending another person who we should interview.
Well, I don't know who you've spoken to before.
We only had Christoph Paulus so far, and I very embarrassingly don't remember the name in Sao Paulo at the conference.
our
We
keynote speaker
interviewed the
from Sao
keynote
Paulo. Yeah.
speaker,
The keynote speaker at the conference.
the former Secretary of Finance of Brazil, I think he was.
You know who would be awesome and I think he would do it, and it just would be great to hear from him because he just has the greatest perspective in general is Sir David Richards, who is, well, okay, now he's Lord Justice David Richards, who is on the Supreme Court in the UK, but he is extremely approachable and a triple I member for many years and an award winner and just an all-around great person. I think that'd be fantastic.
Okay, we'll
You,
keep
you
it in
you heard it
mind.
here first, folks.
He may, but I'd be happy to reach out to him if you want.
Well, that two very good recommendations, of course. Um, Deborah, I thank you so much for spending some of your time with us this afternoon, evening, day, depending on where you are in the world, because I think we're all three of us are different times of day.
Yeah, it's late. We've taken away Robert's evening, right?
That's fine.
Okay.
Well, thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to our next episode.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you so much, and goodbye.